Do you find gel mediums a little confusing to deal with? Well, let me break it down for you because it's really not that bad once you understand. All right, let's take a look at a couple examples here. So I have some panels that I painted on, and this one here, it doesn't have anything over coated, no gel medium over the top. So you could see it's very matte and you are looking at the raw paint. Nothing shiny about it at all. And then you have something like this where if I tilt it the right angle, you can see a glare and it's all shiny. And so that's the gloss medium. And then I have one that is a matte medium. So it's the same thing, a gel medium, one is gloss, one is matte. And you can see it looks a lot like the one here that does not have any. You really can't tell the difference. There's no glare from that. So there's reasons we would want to use a gel medium, and I have a couple of examples here. So this one is a Nova Color gel medium, and it's a glossy transparent, and you can see that if you look into it, it looks opaque white, but it doesn't dry that way. And that's the big thing you need to remember. When you put it on, it's gonna cover the entire surface in opaque white, and you might freak out a little bit, but it dries crystal clear, so there's nothing to worry about. So here's a couple of other brands. This is, now before I go there, this one is so thick you literally have to scoop it out and bang it down almost to get it off the tool that you're using. This one you could see is liquid and it comes in a pourable jar. It's the same thing, it's just more fluid. So you can also, they're telling you here on this Liquitex one, it's a gloss medium and varnish. So you could use it as a varnish as well. Golden has quite a few. I don't have all of them, but this is their version of heavy gloss gel, which would be equivalent to this in Nova Color. Same thing, different brand. This is their liquid version. And you're gonna notice that there's different finishes. This is satin. So that means it's glossy, but not nearly as glossy as the glossy version. So there's degrees of it. Satin, glossy, satin, and sometimes they'll say semi-gloss as well, matte, and there's some newer ones out now that are saying, well, I think actually that's varnish, so we'll just stick with this. But this is their matte medium version, and this one is a little more fluid. I could feel it in here. It shakes. So it's translucent, it's a low gloss. So theirs has a little bit of gloss in it, even though it's considered matte. Now, with regards to all of these, why would we even want to use them to begin with, right? So there's a couple of reasons. First, they can be good when you want to, let's say you have a big divot in a painting and you're trying to fill it in, you decide you don't want that gouge in there or something, you can put layers of gloss gel, you let it dry, and smooth it out. That's one thing you could do. It's also really great for bringing out the colors in a painting. So let's say you're getting towards the end and you're like, well, they're a little dull, which happens when we work with stuff, the pure paint, right? It can dry maybe a little dull, and we want to bring out the colors to gauge the overall painting a little better. This is perfect for that. And not only that, it acts as a protectant seal on the painting. Meaning, so let's say I put it on here and I go, oh, I like this, but I just want to touch up a couple of areas to make it a little more interesting. And I'll paint something on the dry gloss in a section, and I immediately go, oh no, that's not it. And I take something wet and I just wipe it off. It'll come completely off. if I get it right away, versus I paint something on the one that doesn't have anything and I go, oops, that's not what I want. I'm more likely to have a stain left behind on there, and I may not want that. So it makes it much easier to clean up and continue on. And it's also a really cool thing to do if you're gonna put a glaze over and let it sit for a while and then wipe it off, because that glaze, like I still have crevices in here. I can feel them because I didn't smooth anything out. And another thing I want to point out is, like, see these lines here? Well, that is after I put the gloss medium on, and then I just sort of scratched my way through, and they're now textured lines, which is kind of cool. So if I want to glaze over this now, let's say I want to put a dark color on there, and I glaze it. I let it sit for a few minutes, and then I just take my paper towel and I gently roll or wipe it off. Well, something really cool happens is I can get it all off, but because it sat on there for a while, I can rub it off in such a way that it remains in those crevices, and it adds a really nice textured visual texture, highlighting what is there, and it brings a lot more interest that way. So there's a lot of things you could do, not to mention you can technically, this is a permanent seal, and it really does protect. So you can leave it on there as a final coat. Most of us don't, though. Most of us put a varnish on top. I think because of the UV protection, but I believe this may protect it as well. I've never given too much thought or worry about that. But then it comes down to preferences. So I've noticed, and if you can see, I'm gonna hold these two up together. I've noticed what I prefer is simply a matte finish. Like artists, there are some artists that love that gloss, and they work it really well with their art. And this is just something I've discovered over time. I have gone and looked at people's art, and I love that matte finish where it looks like it's the raw paint and it's unprotected, and you're just looking at that painting without any shine to it. For some reason, I love that, and that's what I tend to gravitate towards. So I will use the matte version, and I don't have the matte version here. This is a matte, so matte medium, and theirs has a little gloss, but I will always put that matte varnish over. And I use something called ultra flat, and that's really, it's what I like. But here's one last thing I want to point out between the gloss medium and the matte medium. The gloss will dry crystal clear, and that's why we use it in between layers to sort of gauge how things are. The matte, if you put several layers of this on, so technically what makes it matte is this little opaque particle in there. You'll see it takes the color down a notch. It won't always bring all the colors out. And if you put enough layers of this over and over on, what you're gonna discover is that it makes the colors seem a little cloudy, a little, opaque, depending on how much you put on here. And so that's something to consider. So I typically just use it at the end in, and not so much in a matte medium. This was given to me, and you can see I haven't used it yet, but more so in a ultra flat matte varnish, and that's where I use it. So now that you've got this, play around with it and see what you like most.